You know, Matthew Vaughn is one of these directors that whenever he gets his name attached to something, I kind of get excited about it. Even though he's put out a couple of films in recent years that I did not love, like the second Kingsman movie. I'll straight up tell you, I thought it was terrible. Like the first one, unbelievably fantastic. I thought the second one was terrible. And then The King's Man that he just did with the best actor in the world who has never won an Academy Award, Ralph Fiennes, was also pretty bad. I thought that one was pretty bad. But, you know, when you look at whether it's the original Kingsman or one of my all-time favorites, Stardust, and others, when his name gets brought up, it's something to be excited about. Anyway, he was doing an interview, and this kind of came up where the idea of doing a Star Wars movie came up, and he said something kind of interesting. This comes to us from Den of Geek, who wrote the following. Matthew Vaughn would like to reimagine Star Wars. If I, says Vaughn, was allowed to reboot Star Wars and go back, put Luke Skywalker and Vader in it, and to start again, Vaughn says, everyone would think I'm crazy, but I've been arguing we've all done it with Spider-Man pretty well. Bond, I think Star Wars is the Skywalker family. So if I was allowed to do the Skywalker story, then I'd love to do Star Wars. So Matthew Vaughn, who, by the way, we found out a couple of years ago, has gotten kind of close a couple of times to maybe directing a Star Wars film here and there. But to hear him say that he would like to reboot, go back to the beginning. Hey, we've done it with Spider-Man. Well, we've done it with Spider-Man several times. We've done it with James Bond. Why not? Let's go back, start from page one with this kid on a moisture farm on Tatooine standing up looking at the binary suns. You know, let's just go right back and do it. And if you guys know me, I have no problem with reboots. Like, to me, if you do a reboot and it sucks, oh well, there's a bad movie. It doesn't affect the original in any way, shape, or form. And if you make a good reboot, yay, we've got another good movie we can celebrate, right? So what would be some of the pros and cons of doing a Star Wars reboot? Well, let's start with the pros. Number one, I mean, the way you could do the original Star Wars today, as opposed to when George did it with the limitations that he had, that George talks a lot about all the time, about the limitations he had at the time. There certainly is something in terms of technology that you could do something probably really spectacular with it. Number two, it gives us the opportunity to go back and relive that story again. Maybe from a different perspective, because I always believe if you're going to reboot something, the directors need to bring their own unique slant to it. Same basic story, but bring your own thing to it. So it would be a little bit different, but still, it would give us a reason to go back and just revisit that awe, revisit that wonder. If you ever can recapture that wonder of, first of all, the Corellian Corvette coming over first, and then that Star Destroyer and flying over the top of the camera, and it just keeps going and going and going and going, spoofed so well in Mel Brooks' Spaceballs. I mean, if they can find a way to recapture all of that and take us back there again, introduce us to a new Leia, there's something really special about that, if done right. If done right. The third positive thing about something like if Matthew Vaughn was able to go back is you get to, in one swoop, get rid of a lot of the, let's say, less desirable Star Wars content that we've had in recent years. Ditch the prequels, ditch the sequels, even though I actually really loved one of the sequel movies, but ditch the prequels, ditch the sequels, all that kind of stuff. And you get a chance to start from your first building block and build it all out again. Keep what worked great, change what didn't work so well, all that kind of stuff. A lot of advantages there. So I can see it. I can see where Matthew's coming from, and the idea, if you're a director, that I would love to go back and just tell the story of Luke Skywalker. Of course you would. Who wouldn't? However, I think there's some arguments against it as well. The first thing is this. I disagree with Matthew Vaughn that Star Wars is inseparably just the story of the Skywalkers.
Yep.
I think the inherent genius of the Star Wars universe that George Lucas created Remember that one movie where they said the true genius of the Constitution is the fact that they made it so it could be changed? I think the true genius of the Star Wars universe that George Lucas created was that it wasn't just about one family. It was this incredible universe, this incredible world with its own geopolitical backgrounds and stories and multiple characters. Like, it was literally limitless. And I think personally that where Star Wars is right now, it's imperative that they move outward and explore this incredible playground that George Lucas created. So yeah, the story of Luke Skywalker happened, the story of Anakin Skywalker's turn to Vader, that all happened. That's a part of the history of this universe, but there's so much more to the universe to go and do. That, and once you reboot, there's no going back to the original. Not that you can't go and watch the original Star Wars. I mean, once you reboot the universe, you can no longer build films in the existing universe that we have. And so I don't agree with Matthew Vaughn that rebooting Star Wars is the way to go. I think expanding and moving out and even away from some of the mistakes they made is the way to go. But I can totally see why folks like Matthew Vaughn and maybe others would see the appeal in it, because I think there are some pros to it. Sean, you're a big Star Wars fan yourself. I'm sure this is a conversation that you and all of us who are Star Wars fans have had many times about when is the time to reboot Star Wars, all that kind of stuff. Hearing a director like Matthew Vaughn saying that he would like to reboot Star Wars, what to you would be some of the reasons to reboot it and maybe some of the reasons not to reboot it? How do you see it? Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Rocket Money. Did you know that the average person has around 12 paid subscriptions and they might not even remember to subscribing to half of those? If you have no idea just how much you're spending each month, you need Rocket Money. It's this great app that tracks all of your expenses so you know exactly where your money is going. I recently just found out that over 80% of people have subscriptions that they've completely forgotten about. Seriously, think about how many free trials you subscribe to that you just probably never canceled. And that's why I'm such a big fan of Rocket Money, because I was one of those people. When I signed up to Rocket Money, I was stunned to find out that a gym I had belonged to in another city I lived in, I had still been paying my dues to for over 2 years. Also, that music subscription service I use, yeah, I forgot I was subscribed to 2 other ones. That's where Rocket Money comes in, because Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. With over 3 million users and counting, Rocket Money customers have saved on average of $720 a year. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and manage your money the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Campea. That's rocketmoney.com/Campea. rocketmoney.com/Campea.
Star Wars is approaching 50 years old.
Yeah.
So the original target audience are now the grandparents of the current emerging target audience. And when you put it that way, you're like, wow, that's incredible that we have a continuity that is this long. But that means you have a lot of problems that come along with that. That the audience is fragmented, it's segmented, and one group of people are like, I loved Andor, and another group of people are like, this isn't Star Wars, where are the laser swords? One group of people love Ahsoka, and the other group of people are like, what on earth is going on here? And so I can see appeal in that. Also, like with Star Wars, George Lucas has been mythologizing himself for a long time to present it as he always had this big master plan. I grew up with the THX, the last tapes of it before the special editions, and they had these Leonard Maltin interviews where George Lucas is like, the original trilogy, yeah, it was one script and I had to break it up. History has made it clear that's not true. I don't know if you've ever read the J.W. Rinsler books on the creation of the movies. He literally breaks down the scripts and how many things have changed. Like, if this was actually all his original plan, why did he set up a love triangle between a brother and a sister? Producer Alan Ladd has made it clear in some interviews before he passed about what the original plan was for Return of the Jedi. There's a lot of broken pieces in the continuity that are so pivotal that weren't fully set up. There's a lot of reasons to, like, if you tell it in order with all the great pieces of all of this, I see the appeal. I see where he's coming from. But Star Wars isn't just the Skywalkers. It is this great continuity. It is modern day mythology in space. It's all these different things. The starting point, the first frame we see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, There's so many stories to tell there. It's this huge universe. And I think one of the strangest ones about kind of even this suggestion, one of the biggest criticisms of Disney Star Wars is that they keep going back to the same characters, the same exact timeline.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The same context. Like we keep going back between the start of the Clone Wars and the start of A New Hope. We keep going back. So how do we resolve all of this? Let's go back and tell the same story at the same point in the timeline with the same characters. And I go, it's just the most extreme version of my biggest frustration of what they've been doing for the last 10 years. So I get the appeal. You can fix some problems. It might clean the slate so you can make it appealing again. But I also feel maybe this James Mangold biblical epic where we go 25,000 years in the past, maybe that's a way to get back to the broad epic storytelling.
That's why that's what I'm most excited about.
Exactly. And so that's what I think that what you need to do. Stop like just playing in such a tight sandbox and explore this galaxy, tell new characters. Mandalorian, as we've discussed already, that was one of the unifying things because they could do something fresh and new in this world that's populated by these characters that we love.
All right, guys, the question is for you. What do you see as some of the pros and cons of the concept of the unthinkable? Rebooting Star Wars. What would be the operating motivation behind keeping it as it is or rebooting it or whatever? What direction do you think they should go and how would you handle it? I'd be curious to know your guys' thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.